So we just had a pretty good storm for the last 3-4 hours. It really rolled in hard there about an hour ago. And it's still raining a little bit. And I got my trusty poncho here in my pocket if I need it, if it kicks back up. But I wanted to talk about something that's been on my mind the last couple of days. The the idea of being in the woods full time. I like bushcrafting. I feel like I'm decent at it. I know there are people that are a lot better at it than I am. But if you've ever been stuck in the woods, I have. If you've ever been stuck in the woods during a storm, there ain't nothing in my mind as scary as being stuck in a storm where you have no control where the wind's going, what's going to happen. What am I trying to say? Like, I've been stuck in storms where trees were falling over. There's several trees out here today that I've seen that have fallen over, and granted they're not big strong trees, but I've also noticed that since I've lived up here in the mountains, I grew up down in the bottoms where trees get plenty of water and they're solid, big strong trees, and I've still seen those fall over. But I've noticed up here, since I've lived in these hills, my trees are they're not as solid, not as strong as what I expect trees to be. Most of them, it seems like most of them are not as healthy as I would expect them to be. They're not big. I don't have big massive trees like I'm used to. Most of them are, I'd say, small for even cutting firewood. But like, I'm standing close to a tree now. This little tree right here, I don't know if you can see it. It's not very big. It's maybe, it's a little bit smaller than my leg. And it's dead. I mean, it's just like I cut off. It's just a pole standing there, that little tree. But anyway, back to what I'm saying is, if you were going to live in the woods full time as a, I don't want to call anybody out. I'm not that way. I don't do that. But if you were considering yourself a lone wolf or a solo survivalist, and you're going to live off the land, you're going to run to the woods. Yeah, you could live in this when the weather's nice and it's not freezing outside and it's not, you know, storming. And granted, 90% of the time it's not bad outside. But my thinking is, if you're going to try to live in this, you've got to have some shelter. I mean, even the, what is it, the 3 rules of the survival rule of threes. Can't think today. I've only had like half of my normal coffee intake. So like the survival rule of threes, like the first thing's air, right? You can only live 3 minutes without air. Well, the second thing is shelter. There's a reason why that's shelter. You can only live 3 hours without shelter. And I know clothing is part of your shelter. I have a poncho. I can live longer than 3 hours out here right now with this shelter. But the problem is long term, without your shelter, I mean, are you really going to rely on a tent? Nowadays, you might get a canvas tent. Are you going to lug a canvas tent? I don't think you are. I mean, I'd be impressed if you could lug it for any kind of real distance. The only other options you have are some good tarps. There are good tarps out there, but good tarps also get tore up too. How many tarps you gonna carry? I mean, honestly, plastic sheeting. There's tons of options you can carry. All of them are gonna tear up eventually. You can't rely on a new age tent. The tent you go to Walmart and get right now. If you try to live in that thing every day, I mean, you can live in it for a week. You could live in it for a couple of weeks, but as life goes on, as things progress and things happen, you're gonna tear them up. You're gonna break a zipper here, you know, then you're gonna get bugs in it. There's things that are gonna happen. Your ground, if you don't put a ground tarp down, the ground section of your tent's gonna wear out over time. It's all from experience. So yeah, I'm interested in that. Are you going to build your shelter out in the woods? I mean, that's no different. It's the same thing as living in a house somewhere. I'm more or less curious on what your shelter game plan is. I mean, if you watch this and you're not offended right off the bat that I disagree with being the lone wolf type of person, I would want to ask. I would want you to respond. What is your shelter plan? Yeah, you could go get under a bridge. I mean, could you imagine being out here in a tornado situation? There's a tree up here, one of my favorite trees out here. I really love the way it looks. You can tell it's been spun by a tornado and it's passed. And that may be why all my trees are messed up. I mean, I know there was a tornado come through this area, I think 5 or 10 years ago. It was pretty devastating. But I couldn't imagine being in the woods during a tornado situation, especially some of the bigger tornadoes that we've had in Arkansas. You know, down around that Mayflower, Valonia area down there. They had, what was it, F4, F5? They have some massive tornadoes, and I mean, they were taking out real structures, you know, not just trees and stuff, not just little tents. Yeah, I guess you could pack everything up and cling to a big tree and hide. I mean, there are survival techniques. I could get that. And I guess technically, to be completely optimistic, maybe you could survive a storm in the woods. But I mean, even when the wind blows, every time the wind blows, on a nice day, treetops fall. But, you know, limbs fall out of trees. So I'm interested in that. What's your shelter plan for the lone wolf, soul survivalist type person out there? How would you live, or how do you plan to live if you're on the run? I'm guessing that's what you're doing, is being on the run. How are you planning to do that amongst fighting the weather and then avoiding people and all these things? How are you planning on living? Are you going to sleep in a sleeping bag with a bivvy? I have those. I have those with holes in it. I guess you're going to have to store a whole bunch of things somewhere and hope you can get to it when you need it. I don't understand that mindset. So if you don't mind, I'd like to know some of these things. I'm interested in knowing some of these things. I'm very optimistic. I'm open-minded. I listen to people's ideas. You can learn something from everybody. I'm not a professional. I'm not a survivalist, I guess. What am I saying? I am getting rain on my phone. I'm not a professional. I don't know the answers. I'm not a SEER instructor. So I'm interested in some of your ideas and what you're going to do. So, because you're right. I mean, somebody may come get my compound and take everything I have, and I may be on foot. I plan for that. I don't plan for that like as a plan, but I have a backup plan kind of thing. I know how to do bushcraft skills. I have bushcraft skills. I do these things, but I don't plan on doing it long term and to live that way forever. I mean, even the Indians, they hunted and they made canvas, or they made skins. They skinned stuff and made tents that they could pack up and take away, but those weren't solid. Homesteaders, frontiersmen, they had their tents and stuff, but eventually they ended up building homes too. They built themselves log cabins. I think I could do that. I haven't tried. I really want to try to do that. That's a whole nother story. But I'd like to try to build a cabin out of you know, with my own hands. I think that'd be neat. But time, that's just time. But yeah, if you're still watching and you're interested in commenting, I'd like to know your shelter plans. I mean, I don't understand the mindset is the thing. I understand other things, other aspects of it, but just your shelter, I guess, is what I'm talking about in this video. I'd like to know more about your shelter options. What are your plans for bad weather, for cold weather, for, I mean, I can build a bed and raise myself up off of this ground, I guess that could be an option. You know, a few minutes ago, this whole hillside was running with water. I mean, it was really pouring, probably less than 20 minutes ago. And I thought it'd be a great time to hop outside, run outside and shoot this video, and it quit raining on me right about the time I got out here to do it. So yeah, I guess that's it. I'm interested in that feedback. Maybe if it's more just so I have some ideas if I do have to run away. Maybe it's to add to my bug out bag or whatever. I think I have a solid plan, but my plan is definitely not live in the woods. It may come to that, but I hope it doesn't. All right, I think that's it for now. I'll probably throw a little footage of the rain and the water and all that because it's just nasty out here. And there's my favorite tree laid over. I know it was rotted and falling apart, but I sure did like go walking past it and seeing it. But the squirrels are gonna miss it. More down trees back here. We got plenty of wood to pick up. There's another one. Look at this whole little area covered up with trees. A big washed out spot here in the creek. I've never seen it full like this. Might be the makings of a new miniature pond, though. Clears out and goes that way. Okay. Y'all have a good one.